Hey guys, Loser God is here. Welcome to the ADHD Rants podcast. This is part two of the video Parental Trauma. If you have not watched part one yet, please go back and watch part one. This has been a great conversation. I want to make sure you guys have all of the context. Welcome to part two if you already watched it. As a reminder, I'm having a conversation with SwaDaGentleman. Please check him out. Thanks, guys. Yeah, it was. Did you? Oh, so question. Where were you still? Did you leave California or I don't? I'm trying to remember what you've talked about.
Okay, so I did leave California. So when I left California, I was already on my own and I was already living with a roommate. And so how I left California and ended up to Vegas was I was renting a room from somebody and he wanted his whole apartment back because we had went through like 3 4 roommates that year, and he was getting tired, and like he really sacrificed both of the rooms and made the garage a third room, and he wanted to be inside, and we understood that. So at this
Mm-hmm.
time my mom was already in Vegas, and she had moved to Vegas a year before I did. She moved in 2016. I went to Vegas earlier that year after my attempt, which was 2017. And so I just moved out there. So I spent like a month packing my things to Vegas, and December 31st of 2017, I left, and I caught a flight to Vegas, and so all my stuff was in Vegas except for like a bag and stuff like that. And then from there, because the apartment complex that my mom lived in was like this, basically this uh the way to describe it is it's a fully furnished
Mm-hmm.
apartment units that you can rent weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. And once my
Yep.
mom told me that Vegas had those, and in addition to regular apartments, I was like, okay, this is kind of dope, because in California, in the Bay Area, we don't have those. I'm like, this actually works. So,
Yep.
and I stayed with my mom a month, got a job, and then had a little money saved up from my previous job, from my previous 401k, and then I put that towards an apartment, and then I had my apartment, and then that's the same apartment that I was in my TikToks for like the last few years. So, and again, when I got into that apartment and I started making it my own, it became the
Yours.
house. It became
Mm-hmm.
it became mine, you know, and and then unfortunately last year I got evicted, and I ended up relocating to Kansas City, Missouri, with my aunt and uncle. Now this aunt and uncle are extended family. Um, while they may not be blood relation to me, they have treated me more like their nephew than anything. So we wake up, we have positive conversations. Me and my uncle will watch wrestling on Mondays and Fridays. I go to therapy, go to the gym. I speak with my psychiatrist, and being out here was more of extra healing that I needed to do in order, and as well as just you know and it was being out here was more healing to do, other than just me moving here and just relocating here and say forget it, I'll be here for the rest of my life. But I have plans to return to the West Coast next year.
Okay. Yeah. So just like whenever you moved to Vegas,
Mm-hmm.
I moved into whenever I first moved out, I moved into a fully furnished apartment. I'm sorry, future editing me. I hope you find that picture of everything that I moved out with. No pressure, but,
Mm-hmm. It's all
but
good.
no
It's
pressure
all
if you
good.
can't find that
I'm
picture.
sure I'll get my stuff to you.
But literally, I moved out with no furniture. I moved out with clothes and some stuff that I bought, which like pots, pans, dirty clothes hampers, stuff like that. I had very little. It could all fit. My uncle drove a Dodge Journey at the time, and it all fit in his trunk.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that was all I moved out with. And I moved into my fully furnished, again, roach infested bed bugs, and went from there because
And you
I,
made it work.
yep, made it work. Made it work.
I swear. The first apartment, I feel like almost everybody has a first apartment story, that the apartment wasn't really that clean or whatever. Like,
Yep.
for me, my first apartment I had. So when I moved out on my own, I rented with somebody for a couple of years, right? So me and him rented two different 2-bedroom houses, and then when I finally got on my own at 24 and got my very own first apartment, it was clean. I could just tell the owners redid the apartment, and they had to just put the stove in there and stuff like that, and they
Hmm.
did that while I was gone. But there was a couple of times where I had wasps in my house,
Oh,
and I was
wow.
yeah, and they died. They died. But I was like, there was one time I was like, I wasn't even going in my room. Like, I'm not trying to get stung in my sleep.
Right?
But eventually, what I did do was I did clean up my room and I did rearrange some stuff. And then when they died, I made sure to get them out the house and stuff like that. But I swear, like that first apartment came with like you feel like it came with problems.
Yep,
But
it did.
but you would rather the problems of that than the problems that you used to have.
Yep, I agree. 1000%, 10 toes down.
Right, and stand on business with that one. I'd rather take the wasps and the roaches before I take deal with my
Hmm.
mental health declining. Forget that.
Yep,
The, the,
exactly.
you can exterminate the wasps and the roaches and stuff like that, but you're gonna have to take years to get to repair your mental health.
So, if you're comfortable with sharing, I've already seen the video. Again, like I said, that was the video that attracted me to your content about the day you cut off your mother. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, sure, that's no problem because I've talked about it before. Because, as I said, it was multiple things that led up to that over the course of like maybe 10 years. So the first thing that led up to it is my mom put a restraining order out on me in 2006. And I remember how that happened because me and my mom would get into it about little things. Like you said, your mom yelled at you about stuff too. Like my mom would do the same thing. She would burst in my room about little stuff and yelling at me, and I would snap back. And at this time, I developed a trauma response to being verbally abused by my great aunt. And then, I remember one day I'm coming in the house from either school or I'm not sure where I came from. I think it was school, yeah. And one of my oldest cousins was there, um, and she hands me papers from the city and county of San Francisco, California, saying that this is a restraining order on you, and you're not to be within a yardage of uh, certain yardage of your mother, or you'll be arrested or something like that. And I was like, what? And so that was that, and I had to leave the house for a week, and then I had to go to a court date where at first they upheld the restraining order, and I had to do mandated anger management. Then down the line, when I'm doing anger management, the restraining order was lifted. 2 years after that, in '08, she called the police on me. Same thing, yelling and stuff like that. But at this time, I snapped. I was yelling back and stuff like that because she's yelling at me, and now I'm the bad guy. So she called the police on me twice in one day, and I was like, nope, I'm done. Like, in the second time, I had to leave the house, and then the second time, the officer reached for his pistol. Like he had his hand on his holster, about to, how certain police officers have that
Mm-hmm.
button on their firearm, about to pull it
Yep.
off. He reached for that. One of my friends at the time found out about it. He was like, "What is wrong with your mom? Like, why is she doing this? You're not a bad person. She's calling the police on you for nothing." And it was really nothing because she would literally yell at me. And in that same year, we were living in the projects, and so it's low income housing. And certain time after that, the police incident, she just left the apartment to me. I was like, "What?" I just called her and asked what happened. She was like, "I'm tired of arguing with you and coming home and not having peace." I'm like, "But you started with me." But anyway, then that's the year I turned 22, and then later after I turned 22, I moved out. Now fast forward to Vegas and stuff like that. Me and my mom were both in need of each other's help, and my oldest sister, because I do have a sister, she was like, "I recommend that you don't do this and help your mom by letting your mom live with you, and then in order for you to pay rent so you get back on your feet," because I was in the middle of jobs and stuff like that. And so, yeah, and I was like, I ain't got no other choice. It's either
Yeah.
I do. It was literally one of those situations where I didn't have a choice. It was either my
Mm-hmm.
mom comes in and helps me with the rent, or we both end up homeless.
And that's a reality, unfortunately, for a lot of people.
Exactly, and I hated that. This was 2021 when this happened. So okay, Now my mom moves her stuff in, and me and my mom are, we had a we had a pretty much decent relationship. It wasn't a perfect relationship, as into where um, every day we would talk and stuff like that. Even when we were neighbors living in the same apartment complex, um, you know, didn't really talk that much, Um, and so I remember this one day, I was like, she was like, "I love you, son." Like, Chelsea, please get your stuff out of the kitchen, because the apartment that I had is small, like it's
Yeah.
small, like where basically the living room and the kitchen were in the same area, but it was sectioned off. Because like if you step on the hardwood, you in the kitchen, but her stuff was like literally blocking my stove and stuff like that. So one night she was going to sleep, and I was sitting in my room, and my mom sleeps with the TV on and stuff like that. And I told her, like, you can't sleep with the TV on in my house. This is my TV. Like, legitimately, this is my TV. Like, I bought it from Walmart. Like, and so I remember my mom was intoxicated off of malt liquor to 11, and she was talking shit about me and about me telling her that her stuff was in the kitchen. And I woke up because I'm trying to sleep. I say, "Hey, I could hear you." My mom didn't apologize or anything like that. Now the following weekend, my maternal grandfather died. I'm sorry, her dad died, and um, and I got to know him a little bit, but for years before he actually died, I thought he was already dead. So she goes to LA for the funeral and stuff like that. Cool, bet. Um, I didn't go to the funeral. Like, um, didn't I really didn't have no desire to go to the funeral because I didn't really know him like that. But she went to the funeral, didn't say sorry about the drunken stuff like that. The next thing you know, she calls me and we have this argument about the thing that happens. She over here tells me to shut the fuck up, mother. And he calls me the motherfucker. I hung up the phone in her face. I said, I'm not. I'm not going through this. And when I hung up the phone in that face, the two events that I talk about, the restraining order and the police being called on me, they came back to memory because I had suppressed those for years. I had suppressed those memories for years in order to, move forward with life. I had literally not, and I remember like I had literally not talked about that for years. And I said, hell no. And I sent her a text
Yeah.
message: "You are no longer welcome in my house. When you're able to get your things and leave." And it took her about a week to get her things and leave. And when she did send for her things, a friend of hers um, came to the house and was like, "So I hear that you kicked your mom out because your grandfather died." I said, "Oh, we're lying on people again."
Oh, oh my
I
God.
said, and that's when I told my mom's friend whom I've been to their house, whom I've been to their house. I've been to their house multiple times because my mom has introduced me to her or whatever, and I told her exactly what happened, and I was like, nah, like, and I was like, I'm through with this. And I told like, this is the first time my mom lied on me. That's when I told her about the restraining order. That's when I told her about the police being called on me. And I said, at this point, it's either my mental health or a
Hmm.
relationship with my mother, which even I couldn't admit it that back then, which has been an inconsistent, um, unstable relationship based on the fact that she has never fully been in my life. So I said, I'm choosing my mental health. Her homegirl looked at me like, well, I can't even blame you. And she was like, just know, unfortunately, if I'm having an event at the house, you might not get an invite because your mom is gonna be there, and I don't want no drama. And I was like, you know what? It is what it is.
It is what it
But
is.
because here's the thing, I really didn't know a lot of people outside of the ones that I worked with. And at that time, I'd already gotten laid off from the first job that I got in Vegas due to the pandemic, you know?
Yeah.
So I was in Vegas during the pandemic, but at the same time, I was on my way to getting a new job too. Like I had gotten a job working at the Park MGM hotels, cleaning it up, and then I got another job at a sports betting app. And then, you know, I just made the decision to cut her off, and then there's more to actually, to actually cutting it off, to actually cutting my mom off. Like sometime in November, um, my mom was threatening to sue me for the rent that she paid to the apartment when there was like no like I didn't sign anything that said that I would, pay it back, even if it was a verbal agreement. I was like, you know what? I'm not trying to go into the courtroom again. I remember what happened when I was there at 19. Let me pay her back. I had nearly $3,000 in my bank account. I gave her the 1,600, and I said, "Fuck it, I'm done with it." And then after that, I remember my mom kept trying to contact me. I remember I went to Atlanta for a cousin's wedding 2 years ago. 2 years ago this time, was this September? So almost the last month, last day of September. 2 years ago this time, and she contacts me, and I blocked her and stuff like that. And so
Mm-hmm.
when I got out here, and when I got out here last year, I put myself on a waiting list for therapy, and I started seeing my therapist. It was short term therapy. I started seeing my therapist this year, and this year is when I finally told her everything of why I went no contact with her. The only thing that I didn't bring up is the fact that when I tried to unalive myself and I ended up in the hospital, she never came. And I tried to make excuses for her, but I was like, no, like that's my mom. And I heard this woman say that I would drop any and everything for you, but when any and everything happened, she never showed up. I didn't bring that up to her. Kind of forgot it, but it is what it is. But I told her everything, and I even told this story on TikTok when I told her this year on Mother's Day why I decided to go no contact with her, why I stopped talking to her. She was like, well, I tried to apologize for everything. I said, no, you didn't. You may have apologized for yelling at me as a child, as a little, like adolescence and stuff like that. You may even have apologized for leaving me with my great aunt when you went to jail. But all the other stuff that I'm telling you about, the lies that I had to find out from a cousin,
Yep.
you didn't apologize for that. You didn't apologize for the restraining order. You didn't apologize for calling the cops on me twice in one day. And the second time, um, is when, like I said, they grabbed the officer reached for his gun. And the craziest thing is, when I told that story 2 years ago, around this exact same time, somebody in the comments was like, "Do you not realize that there are cases of black men who are
Yep.
unalived by police officers on a daily basis? What if the officers would have pulled his gun and you would have been gone?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but one thing people fail to forget or don't realize or don't understand, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. So my interactions with law enforcement have been different back home. Like I remember there was an incident in the first apartment that I had in 2012 where somebody broke into the neighbor's house, and Oakland Police Department, they came and one of the officers pulled his gun on me. I said, "Hey, I just live here," and that shook me up a little bit. But that same officer knocked on my door. He said, "Hey, I truly apologize for pulling my weapon on you. Please understand that we got a call and my safety and everything, but I wanted to make sure you were okay." And I respected him for that because he knocked on my door and explained why. Because he had felt bad because I put my hands up, So we live in a society where, fucking Oscar Grant, Philando Castile, George Floyd, um, Trayvon Martin, um, more recently, Marcellus Williams. We live in a society where, as a black man, via law enforcement or the legal system, our lives could be taken from us without being proven innocent. And so for my mom to do that, a lot of people in the comment section was like, "Does she not realize that shit like this happens?" And then again, I have to remember being a black person from California, a lot of the racism and stuff that we are taught about, it doesn't happen a lot in
Mm-hmm.
California. It does happen, but not on the scale as it would happen like somewhere in like a Texas or like a Florida or like here in Missouri where I'm currently located at. Um, and so in the comment section of that video, it was like, yeah, like she literally could have put you in danger. And somebody was like, you should be petty and you should have called the police on her. I was like, nah, I'm not gonna do that
Yeah.
because I can't. I would like as much as like I thought about doing the same thing she did to me. That's not going to help. That's not going to help me move forward, and it won't.
It's
The,
not.
the the best thing that I did for myself to move forward was to tell her about herself in that text message, and then watch her crash out. She was like, fine. You know what? Block me. And the craziest thing is, my mom tried to use religious manipulation against me in the text message. And I'm like, I'm not a Christian, because I've told my mom that I was no longer a Christian, that I was more spiritual than religious and things of that nature. And then there's been times where she was trying to tell me to pray to God. I'm like, if I told you
Mhm.
that I'm spiritual and non-religious and I'm not a Christian anymore, why would you advise me to pray to a God that I don't believe in anymore, or subscribe
Mhm.
to a system that does more harm than good? You
Yep.
know, I told her that, and she refuses to listen to me. And when I told her that, in you know, earlier this year in May, I, I felt like I stood up to the biggest bully ever. Like,
Yeah.
I stood, because here's the thing: for years, I couldn't see how my mom was abusing me. I couldn't see how my mom was doing me wrong as a child and stuff like that. And it wasn't until, like, my cousin had to tell me that my mom has been lying about needing money from me and saying that I needed that she needed money from me for stuff. And when I got asked about did I get certain outfits or certain clothes or whatever, I would say no. And I was like, wait a minute, what? I said, damn, I really don't remember all of this stuff. She was like, I don't expect you to. She was like, she was like, your life has been lifing. But this is the cousin of mine that acts like more like a little sister than a cousin, And me and this cousin have always been tight. Me and this cousin are essentially the bloods of our family, like
Mhm.
liking video games, Power Rangers,
Mhm.
Linkin Park. Because I remember one time when Power Rangers Time Force first came out, she must have sang the damn theme song over a million times, and it got annoying. Like, would you shut up singing a damn Power Rangers Time Force theme song? Dance into another. Anyway, but when I told that story, you know, it had to be made realized to me, like, even then in that moment, like, specifically in 2008, your mom could have had your life taken from you. And
Yep.
thank goodness for living in the Bay Area, and thank goodness for running into officers in the Bay Area
Mhm.
that thought before using their weapon, you know?
Mhm.
So it, and like I said, this year was a final, like, I put a definite saying, this is why I don't fuck with you. I ain't
Mhm.
fucking with you no more. She said, don't. She said, fine, block me. Don't come. Don't, when I die, don't come for my funeral. I said, okay. And I said, I wish you nothing but peace and tranquility for the rest of your life. To summarize the text message, and then, like, I went through this. And the craziest thing is, it happened at a perfect time, because that same week I was leaving to the Bay Area to go to my 20th high school reunion. And so I literally grieved. I literally I yeah my grief spell was tough. Like, I
Mhm.
was when I tell you it was tough, like, my aunt and uncle witnessed me cry for like 2 days straight.
Yep.
Like, I was I released so much grief, and I'm like, damn, I really got that off of me. And I didn't think, and a great part of me didn't think that I would ever stand up to my mother in that aspect, because, you know, it, it's not, it's not really common for black men to stand up to our mothers, you know. But at the same time, I heard this, I heard this quote, some years ago, and it goes, if you as a black man have a problem with black women, you take it up with your mother. Now, a few years ago, when I was in my 20s, I didn't understand that quote. I was like, wait a minute, how does my mother have to do with me and me dating other black women? Oh, then I started thinking about my life and thinking about the things that I've been through with my mother and all the covert narcissistic things that she's did.
Mhm.
And I was like, I get it now. I get it. And so a lot of things started making sense. And but that 2 day, that late grief spell, because I literally put a nail in the coffin and said, I'm done. That was the first time that I stood up to my mother in that capacity, and I felt like I came out victorious, because you can't do nothing. There's nothing that you could do at this stage in my life to try to force me to change my mind. You can't call certain relatives to try to force them to talk to me. They don't have my
Yep.
number. You can't
Mhm.
contact my great grandmother to force her to for us to talk. She's deceased and has been deceased for a decade now. There's nothing you can do to manipulate me into having this relationship with you.
Yep.
Like when I did that this year, yeah, it took me down and I cried for a couple of days and stuff like that. But I really, uh, I I feel vindicated. I feel there's a sense of victory, but not in a ha ha I won, but like I just stood up to somebody who's been causing me trauma that I have may not have realized,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had to hear from different people. And the craziest thing is, this time was not the first time I went no contact with my mother. This is the second and final time. And the first time was actually in '08, where I didn't talk to my mom for about 2 years. I haven't spoken to this woman outside of the text message and outside of running into her earlier last year. I hadn't really been around my mother in 3 years. And and the craziest thing is, I had somebody while I was on the train back to California tell me that I should reconsider because their parent has died. And that goes back to what you were saying earlier about people saying, well, that's still your mom, and that's, you only got one mom, but I only get one me. And
Mm-hmm.
I know why we know why they do it. Because most of the people that we probably ran into have had great relationships with their parents.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we have not, and we don't know what a healthy relationship with our parent looks like. And we can explain it to them until the mountain comes, but unless they've been in a situation, they'll never understand. Like, I remember one time I was mad at my mom during the time that I was living with her from like ages 17 to 22, and I was actually in the recording studio. I had a friend that both of his parents, they're no longer living, and he was like, man, you only get one mom. See, whatever you got to deal with, like, get it, and then you feel guilty because it's like, dang. But I was young at the time. I was like
Yep.
legitimately like 2021 at the time. So I'm
People
still
really need to
learning.
be careful when they say things like that.
Right. You know, but now it's like, but because and I've literally told people that I've told on TikTok, like, I'm not doing it. And another thing that it led me to say is this: don't tell black men to heal from their traumas, but also expect them to go back to the person that traumatized them in the first place. You only get one mom. I say fuck that. I'm not doing it. Excuse my language. I'm not doing it because the simple fact is, you're telling somebody that has had the legal system used against him by his own mother to go back to being, oh, I love you, mom, I love you too. No, I'm not doing it. Like,
Yep.
I'm not doing it. Like, again, and I will always tell people this: if I have to choose between my mental health and you, I'm choosing my mental health.
All
And
day,
you,
every day.
all day, every day. My peace of mind is priceless. Another person, I like to say that I don't like to say this, but let's be honest. People that come in and out of our lives, it can be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but you can't immediately get like your peace of mind back. Your peace of mind will take you literally the rest of your life to obtain, or years out of your life to get back to, or get to a place where you are free of all that pain and stuff that you went through. And it took me a long time to get free of that. So, but it really, yep, it really, that's the story in the nutshell as it is. And since then, my mom hasn't tried to contact me, and I've
Mm-hmm.
been respectful of her boundaries. She said don't contact her and don't come to her funeral when she dies. That and and most people and most people would look at me like, "Are you serious? You wouldn't go to your mom's funeral?" Like, no.
No.
And then something else that really happened to me that had to force me to realize that my mother didn't love me, and it's going back to when I tried to take myself away from here, is when I was in the hospital and she didn't show up. I'm like, and I was talking about it with my aunt. She was like, if that was me, the world would have stopped, and to make sure that my child was okay. The
Mm-hmm.
world would have stopped completely, you know. And I'm like, no, what, you right. There's no other way around it, because I'm like, dang, on my other anytime I know like friends that have had their mother and then they needed something, their mom was always there. My mom wasn't there for me, and she called, but I'm like, calling doesn't do shit. Like I literally remember the facial expression I had while I was in the hospital in the emergency room, laying down, and I just looked at the phone, and I just, you ever mean mug your own phone? Like when
Yeah.
you hear somebody say something stupid,
Yep.
I did that. I mean mug my own phone. I was like, I don't. In the back of my mind is, I don't believe a word you're saying to me right now. You may be in tears, but I don't believe. And so that helped me came to the grip a couple of days ago. Yeah, my mother doesn't love me, because if she did, and I'm not talking about buying school clothes or money or allowances, in the moment where it was needed, and mental, in my mental, and I was one step away from not being here, she would have been here. So I'm solidified in my decision ever to speaking to my mother again. And for those that come from households where they couldn't imagine living without their mother, except death, they're never gonna understand. So I've been at a point where I'm not gonna make you understand. Like
Yep.
if you got a mother that has been phenomenal towards you, made sure you had the essentials, but also could be that safe space to talk to, you're not going to understand people that have mothers like mine, and worse.
Yep.
Yep, that's the
Um,
story in a nutshell. Mm-hmm.
I think it's important that your story is talked about because while we had, similar experiences, me cutting off my mom was very different because yours had a lot more, vulgar, violent things go on. Basically, my
Mm-hmm.
mom is basically she's manipulative. So she tries to control the narrative as much as possible. She doesn't really get vulgar. She plays the innocent card.
Oh, my mom does that too. My mom does that too. She tries
Mhm.
to, the when the times that the restraining order and calling the police, she tried to downplay
Mhm. Yep.
any any of her involvement in the situation. So trust
Yep.
me.
Yep. But I didn't have the experience of like my mom cussing. I mean, she's cussed at me before, but not in a way of, again, it never really got violent shouting match, type deal. So whenever I cut my mother off, it was more of a, again, like you said, it was other stuff leading up to this, and this was the final straw of me blocking her and not looking back. And still to this day, I'm technically still mourning her because, again, something people don't take into consideration is cutting off a parent is hard. You want to have a good relationship with your parent. You want to be able
Facts.
to talk to them about accomplishments you've had. You just had a bad breakup. You found someone good for your life. You want to be able to talk to your parent about that, and realistically I could not talk to her about those kind of things. So still to this day, I am mourning her because there's been so many times I've wanted to call her, but I know what it's going to be like having her back in my life. It's just not going to be good for me mentally in the long run. So the day I
Right.
cut my mother off, I have asked my mom 30 million times because my mom, she doesn't have a car and she's not the most healthy person. I was like, "Mom, I will take you on errands. I will go pick up things for you, but just tell me, give me a heads up. I have a full-time job and I can't just be leaving in the middle of the day. I can't do that. That's how you lose a job." And I
Right.
got bills to pay. And I don't feel like that was a lot to ask, especially whenever you're just sitting at home. You can plan your week, say I want to go to the grocery store this day. I need something picked up this day. You have a doctor's appointment. You didn't just find out yesterday you had a doctor's appointment. Like, I don't feel like that was a lot to ask. That was all I was asking her. Like, give me a heads up. Not the day of or the day before. Give me a heads up. That way I can plan my day accordingly, especially if I have to leave work. Cause
Right.
that's a huge deal. So she calls me one day, and here's the other thing is my mom, she doesn't straight out ask things. She tries to get you to answer questions so she can control how she wants you to go about it. She calls me and
Mm-hmm.
she says, "Hey, what are you doing after work?" And I was like, "Oh, I have somewhere to run. Why, what's up?" And she goes, "Well, what time are you going to be done?" And I'm just like, "Mom, what do you need? Just get to the point of what you need." And she was like, "Well, I need to go pick up my grocery order from the grocery store. I was like, okay, well, I can go pick it up for you. I can make that work. I can pick it up for you and drop it off to you. And she's like, no, I need to be with you. And I was like, no, I do grocery orders all the time at work because we'll have stuff that there's some kind of event coming up that maybe we couldn't get on a Cisco order or something like that. And I'm like, no, you don't. You can just put in the order and I'll pick it up. Just send me over the email. And she goes, no, I need to be with you. I need you to pick me up and take me over there. And I was like, Mom, that is way out of the way for me to have to do that. And not only that, I got a lot more firm with my mom because she'll get into my car and then say, I have to go here, 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 and here. So I got a lot more firm with her, with my boundaries because I just got tired of that. You know, what was supposed to be 2 hours max turned into my entire day or my entire evening.
Right.
And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure I can pick it up for you. Can you forward me over the email? And she's like, I'm not doing all that because that's stupid. And I'm like, whoa, what the? And I go, well, Mom, that's the only thing I can do for you. I can pick up your groceries for you, and I can drop them off to you. And and I was telling her that doesn't sound right. Can you forward me over your confirmation email? Because another person should be able to pick up your order. Like that's just not something I've not heard of. Another person not being able to pick up your order. I mean, they have literal links on here in case somebody else is gonna pick up your order. It's just like like in case somebody else is picking up your order, send this link. Like I've used a grocery pickup a lot. And she just kept saying, "Oh, that's stupid. You're not helping me," and blah blah blah. We got to a whole back and forth about that. And then she goes, "So you're not going to help me?" And she worded it exactly like that because that's what she does. She's trying to be manipulative. It's just like, "Oh, no, I gave you an option of how I can help you. You just don't want to take it." And so finally,
Exactly.
because I just didn't feel like going back and forth, I was like, "Nope, I'm not going to help you." Because clearly you don't want to take the option. She goes, "Thanks for nothing," and hangs up. And I was like, in that moment, I had a flashback of all the times I had asked her, like, please give me a heads up when you need something. Please plan your week accordingly. That way I can plan my week around it. And especially if you have something that I have to leave work in the middle of the day, give me a heads up. That way I can let my boss know, things like that. And realize all the times that she had disrespected me and refused to give me any kind of heads up whatsoever. Like, I want to do this stuff for you because I understand you don't have a car, you can't drive. She won't be able to get a license anymore because again she's a sickly person. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to do this stuff for you. That way you can be able to live your life. But it's just like, if you don't do it her way, she was not grateful about it. It was just, it needed to be done specifically her way. So after that, I blocked her number. She called me at work one day and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize it was her. I picked up the phone and she goes, "Why aren't you answering my calls?" And I was like, "Mom, you were a horrible person last time we spoke and I just have no interest in talking to you anymore." And I forgot exactly how the conversation finished, but we hung up and that was the last time I spoke to her on the phone in a two-way communication. She at several times has called my job. She has called and left me voicemails. She has sent me emails. And it's always in a way of, I guess you don't care about me. Um, I'm just trying to check to see if you're even alive, stuff like that. It's in a way of being manipulative. And I know how she is. And I fell for this for far too long. And finally I decided I'm not gonna fall for it anymore. I'm just not gonna do it. I'm exhausted. I'm like, if you cannot be respectful of the things I ask, there's just there's just no point in this. And I have not spoken to her again in a two-way conversation since. She's tried to reach out to me several times. She'll tell family members that I cut her off for no reason. So family members has started reaching out to me, and I got firm on family members. I'm like, You will be next if you don't stop. I'm gonna tell you that
I,
right now. You
I
will
haven't
be
experienced
next.
that with family members because
I.
uh, if I was, and my thing was, if any of my family members hit me up and they get my number randomly, I I'm gonna tell them the whole truth about her, about her. And if they listen, they listen. And if they keep persisting, and I'll block them too. So I'm thankful that I didn't have to go through that part of, the no contact. My mom calling my job and stuff like that. Thankfully, my mom isn't the call it the job type of person, because I'm like, you don't need to be calling my job and trying to and
Yeah.
trying to talk to me while I'm trying to make money to pay my own bills. Like, what are you
Mm-hmm.
doing? Like, um, yeah, like that. The whole and that's another part of the no contact story that I heard is like the mom trying to get in contact through other family members. My other family members don't even talk to me, so that's an impossibility. And as much as I used to hate it growing up, and being an older adult, I kind of prefer it, because that way you don't call me, you don't try to pry into what I'm doing, and you know
Yep.
I get to live my life. So
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh yeah. I unfortunately there are still I won't say I talk to them, but they still have ways of being able to reach out to me. We still have ways of communication. And um my aunt, her sister, who knows her, but that's her sister. You know how your
mm-hmm.
sister is. I mean, y'all won't even live together. Like
Oh no.
obviously you know how she is. She would send me stuff like you need to learn to forgive and blah blah blah, stuff like that. And again, I
Right.
finally got firm on them. I was like, y'all keep on doing this, you will be blocked next. Like y'all need to understand, I blocked probably the one person that had like the most hold on me. The rest of y'all don't. The rest
Y'all
of
can
y'all,
go.
the rest of y'all do not have that type of hold on me like she did. The
Y'all can
you
get the boot.
right? If you keep on with this, you will be blocked next. Try me, please. Keep on, keep going. And eventually, they finally started coming around. Don't get me wrong; it was something that had to happen a couple times because various things would happen. Like whenever we had a huge power outage. Was it last year? We had a power outage either last year. I think it was last year. And they were like, "Are you gonna go pick up your mom?" I'm not the only one here at the house. You go pick her up. I know
Right.
why you're trying to put it on me because y'all don't want to deal with her. Like, like I'm not the only one that has power over here. You go pick her up. Like, it was just so I got so tired of them asking me to do XYZ, and I'm just like, y'all stop calling me, you do it, because I want y'all to see this experience. The sister already knows. Her sister, my aunt, I know she already knows how she is. I think she just pretends like she doesn't. But like my cousins and stuff, like y'all experience her. Because
Right.
because as soon as people experience my mom, they're like, oh, no,
Like
thank you.
like I see
No.
what you're saying. Like, nah, I'm good. He said, when
Right?
Randy Jackson say, no, American Idol, it's a no for me, dog.
I've
It's a no for me, dog.
literally had people say that to me, like, okay, I understand where you're coming from. Like, yeah, she is not nice to people that are nice to her. It's just insane. It is absolutely insane with me. And so for that reason, I continue to mourn her. I'm still working on mourning her because again, I have my moments. It's just like I want to talk to my mom about things, but I can't. And so for that reason, I just don't see myself. I highly doubt I will ever have a relationship with her again. She never told me anything like don't go to my funeral or anything like that, but if it were to happen, I do feel like I would not go because it's just I'm done with it. I'm tired, and I especially don't want to hear what other family members have to say about where have I been all this time, yada yada, things like that. I've closed that chapter of my life, and I don't want to reopen it again because It was truly an exhausting time. It really was. It was very exhausting. And I just I no, I wouldn't go to her for help. I wouldn't go to her for any kind of gatherings that I have. If I have gatherings, the few times a year I actually let people into my safe place of where I live.
Right. I get you.
She is not invited. I don't deal with it anymore. I can't. Because it's like every single time she comes around, she is in some way making it about her and a Debbie Downer, and criticizing me in some way, and I cannot do it. I cannot do it. I remember one time I had a cookout over here. It was for Juneteenth. This was probably about 2-3 years ago at this point. I don't even think my roommates were home. I think they were out. We had a barbecue here, and I did all the food. She was criticizing my food. Mind you, I bought it all. Took the time to put all of this together. I wanted us to come together. She was criticizing it the entire time. Yep.
No cookouts for you. But
Yeah, right.
we both made the best decision for our lives and our mental health to, separate from our mothers. And like when I started telling people in my family, the ones that were trying to tell me that to separate from my mom, they were so proud of me because
Mm,
they didn't think that I would ever separate from her and continue to be your mother's son, and not seeing the harm that she was doing.
yeah. I'm proud of you too.
Yeah, thank you. I'm proud of you as well because it's again, it's no easy thing.
It's not. It's a hard topic in the black community in general. And then I don't know if you've had this experience, but it's hard for me in dating. And what's absolutely insane about that of why it's hard for me in dating. Again, I'm queer. And so
Right.
a lot of us have experiences where our parents have just won't say disown us, but have talked down on us because of our sexuality. Like I remember there was this girl I was seeing year before last
Mm-hmm.
actually it might have been last year. I was seeing her and I was telling her about how I don't talk to my mother. I don't plan to rekindle that. And I didn't tell her everything that went on because we just didn't date long enough for really me to go in that deep of detail with her.
Mm-hmm.
But I did let her know like one of the reasons was she was not accepting of my sexuality. Like if I brought home a woman, oh, it was gonna be the end of the world. And she was
Right.
like, "Oh no, my parents were the same way, but we got past it." And it's just like, mm,
Right. Wow. So with me, for being heterosexual, I've never had like my sexuality be a determining factor for anything.
mhm,
But since I was the weird guy, the kind of the shy guy in high school, my classmates questioned my sexuality because I wasn't talking to a lot of girls and stuff like that.
mhm,
Because like most people wouldn't believe me if I told them, but I'm still kind of shy and bashful when it comes towards women. But my last ex, when I explained to her the situation, she understood. She didn't try to use that against me. She didn't try to do the whole, well, what did you do for all this to happen? Because that's
yep,
the number one thing that I'm not dating anymore. And I've been outside the dating scene for like 2 years. I've been single and just focusing on myself. But I was talking to my aunt, and that's one the thing that kind of worries me. In addition to being neurodivergent and having ADHD, it worries me about the fact of like, well, in the other aspects of the dating world as a man, I'm judged on the relationship that I have with my mother,
mhm,
and not knowing there's not going to be a lot of people that understand that. How would I navigate that if, like,
yep,
let's say the woman that I date in the future has a great relationship with her mother, and mind you that I'm getting older and I'm pushing 40, so I have to. It's one of those things that I'm being more cognizant of because not everybody is going to understand the situation that me and you come from. We've had abusive mothers in different type of ways. So how do we explain that and navigating well the you know especially if it comes to the point in the relationship where you start to meet the family and stuff like that.
yep,
Like you want to meet the family. Oh, I want to meet your family. I want to meet your your mom was like, babe, I have something to tell you about my mom. And you explain the situation, you know. So
Yep.
that's one thing that I worry about because, again, men, black men are judged about in dating how well we treat our mothers, but them not
Mhm.
knowing that there is a section of black men that don't talk to their mothers because of the things that they did to them. And
Yep.
nobody wants to, you know, be disqualified for dating because they don't have a stable relationship with their mother, you know.
Yep.
And so when I went no contact with my mother, the first year it didn't really affect it that much because the woman that I was dating, she was understanding. So I broke and I told her everything that I'm telling you, you know. Um, well, obviously before the text messages, that just happened this year, but I told her everything that had happened. I made it, known that like, hey, I didn't grow up with both of my parents, so
Mhm.
don't know what a two-parent household looks like. And I was very honest with her. And she still, we still dated, and she
Mhm.
she she had a relationship with her parents, and I didn't mind that.
Mhm.
So but after that, I hadn't really after her and we broke up 2 years ago. I hadn't really got that far in dating because I just focused on taking care of myself and it's just doing the work and um, getting over the breakup.
Yep.
So, but if it comes up, that's one thing I get kind of worried about. So I'll just have to explain it, and whatever woman that I do end up with, she'll either understand it or not. If she doesn't
Mhm.
understand it, I can't force her. But if that
Yep.
disqualifies me from dating a certain type of woman, then all I got to say is it is what it is because
It
I
is what
don't
it
think
is.
right. I don't think a person should be judged in a relation in a relationship or in the dating world based on the relationship they have with their parents because no two people have the same exact relationship with their parents.
Mhm. And some people,
So
I'm sorry, some people had no
mhm.
business making kids. I should not be here. I should
Same here.
not be here.
Same here. Same
But
here.
yeah, it's
I heard the origins of how I got here. I was like, you know what? I shouldn't be here, but I'm
I
here.
should
I'm
not
gonna make
be
the
here.
I'm gonna make the best of this life because that's
But yeah, it's I'm glad you're able at one point to find somebody that was understanding. I'm hoping that you find somebody like that again. I've I my experiences have been a little bit all over the place. I'll find somebody that they're not understanding, or I'll find somebody that is understanding and they're not taking the steps that they need to heal themselves because maybe they had a similar experience. And it's just
right.
like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, I went through that, but I'm also trying to heal myself. I'm not out here being angry at the world and blaming all women for anything.
Exactly.
I'm
You
still
you
trying to take the steps to heal myself. And that's a hard mix to find, that someone that's understanding, and if they did go through what you went through, um making sure that they are also a person that is taking steps to heal themselves rather than just be like, oh, fuck that situation, it's whatever, that
right.
kind of stuff. It's definitely, and what I've realized, and especially dating in Texas, it's a interesting world over here, being a queer woman dating in Texas, because it's just the queer women over here are very, very interesting. Like I said, dating a woman that had a falling out, or her parents had a problem with her sexuality, and even said we still kind of have a hard time with it. It's like, well,
Right.
obviously, people are gonna have either similar experience or worse experiences. Why would you expect me to still have? And she didn't even ask. She didn't even ask what we went through. She said, "Well, are you guys ever gonna mend that?" No,
Damn.
no.
Certain things are unmendable. Certain things you
Yeah.
just certain things you just can't forgive.
Mhm.
You can forgive yourself for not knowing that you would
Yep.
have these experiences, but the act that was inflicted upon you, you can't forgive. So most
Yep.
people have to the thing that I'm noticing more about relationships and how to go about them, especially at this stage in my life, is you have to ask questions. You have to,
Mhm.
like, I know people saying they hate to do the whole getting to know somebody over again thing because, you know, depending on time and age and stuff like that, you feel like you don't have time. But at the same time, you got to
You
ask these
need to.
questions
You have to.
because if I tell somebody I went no contact with my mother and I don't want to speak to them again, they have they should want to know why, and
Mhm.
I'll give them the answer. I'll be honest,
Yeah.
and I won't beat around the bush. I'll say this is
Mhm.
what it is. So if there comes a point in if I'm dating somebody and we do try to get to meet the family and stuff like that, you're not going to see my mom. You might see
Yeah.
cousins, you might see
Mhm.
aunties, and that's and just that you might see blood cousins, you might see aunties, you might see extended family of cousins and aunties and uncles. But my parents, no,
Nope.
I don't even talk to my dad. So,
Mhm. Mine's dead, so I can't.
right, damn. I like how you led into that. Mine's dead. I can't. Damn.
He was actually very easy to cut off because he ain't here.
Damn. That he ain't here. That
he
just caught
cut
me off
he
guard.
he cut himself off. So
Damn. One joke after another. My dad is still living, but I don't care. Really don't care to talk to that man. Like I've mentioned this, I've almost fought him. So
yeah. Well, so I think we have tackled quite a few things. This was a very very good conversation of about both of our experiences, and of course, our experiences aren't the only experiences. I'm sure there are other people that have stories that they would like to tell,
exactly.
that they went through. This has to be a topic within the Black community because this toxic being a parent needs to stop with our generation. It needs to
It
stop.
it really does because a lot of the stuff that we went through from different generations, from from millennials to Gen Z and even Gen X has gone through a lot of the things that we have gone through with toxic parenting and even the being bounced around and the religious trauma part of it, and it's not talked about because of the old rule: what goes on in this house stays in this house.
Mhm.
But Tyler Perry said this best as Medea. But if what goes on in the house is affecting you on the outside world, then it ain't just in the house. So and and we have to, and collectively as a people, we have to get out of this mindset of telling our trauma is being disrespectful to our parent. No, they have been
Mm-mm.
disrespectful to us since a certain point in time in our lives because they weren't raised properly, and so that
Mhm.
cycle of
Yep.
generational trauma is passed down. And my thing is, I'm not having children. I've already decided that because I
Mhm.
don't want to pass down what happened with me and being bounced around to my child, and so
Mhm.
I'm solidified in that decision. So it has to be a conversation more to speak out about because there's somebody I follow on TikTok that speaks out about her trauma against her mom.
Mhm.
There's I know there's a popular content creator by the name of Spiritual Whistleblower. She's talked about her experiences with her narcissistic mother. The
Mhm.
topic needs to be discussed more because a lot of people don't think that we go through these things with our parents, but we do, and our parents think that the things that they have done to us are toughening us
Yeah.
up for a tough world. But that's not the case. You're damaging us before
Yep.
we even step foot into the real world. and
Mhm.
and the craziest thing is they think that this way of thinking is fine, and then there are certain people that are within our generation of millennials and Gen Z that think this the way to raise their kids is fine, like how we were raised and things of that nature.
Mhm.
No, you can't put your kid through the same thing that you went through as a child and
Yep.
expect them to be this super successful person. No,
Mhm.
you have to really nurture a child. You have to really, create be that person that they can always come to talk to. Because if they can't talk to you about things, then who they gonna talk to?
Yep.
They're gonna tell everybody else, and then you be that person that doesn't know what's going on in your kid's life.
Mm-hmm.
So this, I definitely want to see the conversation of parental trauma as it pertains to us in the Black community
Mm.
more, so a lot of us can collectively do the work and heal. And the best thing about this year is going to therapy is my therapist challenged a lot of my thought processes when as it pertained to my mother, and challenged my she challenged my approach on how I would tell my mother why I would go no contact with her, you know, because I was just going to dump everything in her lap and then just block her again. My therapist was like, I challenge you to, whenever you have that conversation with your mom, be open and expect no expectations. I was like, okay. And I did that. And so for me, that helped because I was just going to drop everything in her lap and then just close the door without even hearing her side of the story. I mean, I didn't really hear her side or apology, but but definitely this conversation, as it pertains to our mental health in the Black community, this parental trauma, that has to be talked about more.
Yep, 100%. And of course, mental health in general. Again, that's a rant for another day. We
Right,
can gladly talk about that another time. But yeah,
right.
thank you so much, Swa, for joining me here and taking the time.
No
Because this
problem.
has been a very great conversation. I really hope the right people hear our words that need to hear it. Because while you said earlier that there are some people that don't realize that this happens within the Black community, on the flip side, some people don't realize they're going through the same thing, and
Right.
they really need to hear these things. That way, we can start to mend ourselves as a community, and we can better ourselves moving forward. Because we have got to get our mental health under control. We really do. This should not be a taboo conversation. This should not be, oh, that's some white people shit. It should
Right.
not be that at all. So thank you so much, Swal, for joining me.
No problem. Thank you
Again,
for having me.
his name, you're SwaDaGentleman, SwaDaGentleman everywhere, right?
At SwaDaGentleman everywhere,
Mm.
from to TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, of course. I'll be getting into YouTube content probably sometime next year. All of the social medias, including like my music profiles, because I have done music. Swati Gentleman on Bandcamp and SoundCloud, so you can check out some of my stuff there. And thank you again for having me and having this conversation. This was dope.
Thank you. ADHD Rants podcast will be up on YouTube as well as Spotify. I am still working on getting it on other platforms. If you have a similar situation that you want to talk about, please feel free to leave it in the comment section. Again, like me and Swa are saying, this needs to continue to be a conversation. It will only continue to be a conversation if we actually talk about it. If there are any topics that you want me to discuss, feel free again, leave a comment. Let me know what all you want me to tackle. I hope to have you on my show again, Swa, because there's some other stuff that we should talk about as well. But
Definitely, definitely got to come back because there's a lot of stuff to talk about.
yeah, but thank you so much for joining us, you guys. Stay safe. Love you all. Mwah!